So I think we can all agree that type safety in general is a good thing, but sometimes it's hard to maintain that type safety, especially when you're working with a lot of complex objects, a lot of related data, and when you're talking about data fetching. So here in this video, we're going to be taking a look at how you can do this using Supabase and Nuxt, and how you can achieve type safety all the way throughout, which is generally, I believe, a good thing. So here we have this very simple application. We've got users, and then we've got their posts counts, maybe in a context of a blog, micro blog application. So username and then the post count. Now we could use a view for this, but I didn't want to necessarily create a view, so we're not going to use a view in this case. And the data, by the way, is all stored in Supabase. We've got a table users, we've got a table posts, which relates to the user ID. So pretty simple stuff. And so let's take a look at how this is handled in the backend in our actual code in Nuxt. So here we have just one page, which is fetching the /API. So we get an API endpoint, which we're going to take a look at here. The API endpoint is this one, index.get.ts. So pretty simple stuff here. We're fetching the data here that is relevant, where we're fetching from the users table, and then we're getting all the users data plus this structure here, where we're saying, please count the number of posts associated with that users and rename this post count. And you'll see why in a minute. So essentially what this is doing is actually fetching and counting the number of posts for the users. So a view would be more efficient, but here I think the syntax is pretty cool, and it doesn't make us actually create a view. So that's pretty cool. Take a look at this here. The structure of the data that is returned is, first of all, we get a list of objects, and this object is structured as follows. It's got a user ID, a username, and then an object post count. And actually, it's not just an object, it's actually an array of objects, which has, as part of it, a count. It's a bit of a strange structure here. Not exactly sure why this is being returned like this, but in reality, what we'd like to have is just another field as part of this objects that has post count. So we kind of want to modify this, because the reality is this array of post count objects will actually just be one object which has a count number. So we actually want to return and change a bit of our structure here. So we're doing this here, returned objects or array, I guess, and we're actually mapping through all the data elements, if there are any, and we're taking the same elements from this same fields, the same values from this data elements, but we're overriding this post count here. We're saying this post count is actually going to be the first element in the post count array dot count. So we're just kind of forcing and indexing and flattening, I would say. We can actually say this here, it was flattening the returned objects. And then we're returning here this returned. Now the cool thing here with Nuxt, and I guess all the ecosystem that it relies on, is that we maintain type safety. So if I go into my index.view, my users here will have this structure that it knows with being an array. So it knows that it's an array of objects. And so when I'm iterating through my list of users to actually show them how they're shown here, username and post count, I can actually have this v4 user in users, and then I'm going to have type safety here. So I know that I can actually type in the username here and the user.post count. That's pretty cool here, right? Because we can make sure that what we're fetching is not just in any objects. But then what happens if I want to actually extract this into its own component? So that's fine. I can actually just go ahead and create a new component. So let's say user display. And we're going to create a template and then a script.setup length ts. And so here I want to actually pass in just this, right? I just want to display this. Might be able to put this in a div here and call it flex justify between. Cool. So I'm going to put this inside the div, but here, of course, we don't have the user. So I could do a couple things. I could actually create the props to get the user. So I want to have the user and define props, but I actually want to do so type safely, right? So I want to have the user, and then I could do a couple things. I could say that either I've got my my types from my database that I could use. But the thing is that this is only returning back my username, which is not, it's not enough, right? I want to actually have the post count. So I could be doing some like, strange thing where I'm extending this and doing like, post count and stuff like this, but it's not ideal. I don't want to be able to change. I just want to basically guess or have the application assume that what is being passed from the endpoint is going to be what is injected into this component. And what is super helpful is we actually have this. We can actually import internal API. So this is generated by Nuxt, and it's from NitroPack. So this is generated by Nuxt internal API from NitroPack. Whenever there is, whenever you're running the dev server, essentially what you have is that you've got this internal API being generated here. And so essentially what we want to do is basically say, hey, this user is actually going to be internal API. And so we just want to have this. So we say it's going to be this API. So in the case that you have multiple APIs, then in that case, you might have, slash API slash client slash post, et cetera, et cetera. But the problem here that we have is that we've got user, post count, user ID, username, but it's actually a list of elements. So we don't want to have actually this. And so we want to have a way to essentially extract just the type of one element of this array. And so this is kudos to Stack Overflow and other resources on the internet, but you basically have a way, and I'll just paste it here, to to have a type which is an array element. And so here, if I wrap this whole thing around array elements, this should do the trick. And so essentially this type here is actually returning just one element of this array. And so here my user is completely type safe. I can see that I've got the post counts. I have no more errors. And so here I could reuse this. So I could put this, in somewhere like in a type, array elements, and actually have this, exported, and then have it be part of my auto imports if I want to. So, I'm going to keep it here just for the sake of it. But here we have our type safety here. And then what I just need to do essentially here is to say, instead of this one, actually, instead of the whole div here, I'm going to be calling my user display here. And then it's actually going to be user in users in the v4, and then I can just pass in my user. And here I'm maintaining complete type safety as part of it. So that's pretty cool. And then if you want to actually do a lot more complex type safety, so for example, if I wanted to actually return a list of counts as part of it, right? So I think I can actually do that. Counts. There we go. And I might want to limit the number of counts that is being returned. So let's say I want to have the first 5 counts as, for example, foreign table is going to be count post. And here my returned, I can see that I've got counts as an array of elements. It's actually not counts, it's posts. There you go. There you go, post. And then I got post ID, user ID. And that whole type safety will actually propagate throughout. And so here my user will be able to actually access the post ID, user ID. So that just goes down all the way. So very powerful stuff here if you want to have type safety. I would highly recommend. That's what I've been using for all my apps. Super powerful stuff. And then in another video, we'll be taking a look at how you can have type safety the other way around when you're doing requests, making sure that your requests to Nuxt or to your different endpoints are valid and okay. Cool. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.